Hello everyone, welcome back to Seasoned Professional. My name is Hannah Octavia and we are officially starting season 2. I am so excited for this season. I have some amazing guests on. We had amazing guests on last season. We're going to have more amazing guests on this season. Today we have on a very beautiful guest. His name is Judah. And I filmed this back in December. And when I film my episodes, I don't really know the order that they're going to go in until I start editing. But I'm really glad we're starting with this one because I think, first of all, Judah is a beautiful storyteller. He's less of a straightforward answer type of person. So I think it's an amazing listen. I don't want to give too much away, but his story, he's dealt with things like bullying, not feeling accepted, questioning his career, and then kind of revamping his life and dedicating 30 years to his 3-decade plan, which he is currently in the process of completing. Before I let you guys go and listen to the podcast, I do want to just say there is discussion of loss at the beginning of this episode. And it's quite heavy, I will say that. And when Judah shared this with me, my heart absolutely dropped into my stomach. And while I am so appreciative that he shared this, I can't imagine how hard this loss must have been for him. I think once you get listening, you'll notice that it takes him a while to kind of open up. And the fact that he shared this thing with us just makes me understand him even more. Please be kind. Please take care of yourself if you're not in a place at the moment to listen to someone's loss. If you go about 10 minutes in, we kind of stop talking about it. However, as an interviewer, when he shared this with me, my first thought was, how am I going to respond to this? And how am I going to do this justice? And I was so scared that I wasn't gonna, I was gonna say something wrong, or I was gonna it wasn't gonna be perfect, As someone who is rather new to interviewing, when Judah shared this with me, I just kind of settled into myself. And the first thing I did was let him speak. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned since filming season 1 is I don't always need to speak. I don't always have to put in my 2 cents because I do love to talk. However, the majority of the time people can share their own story and I am simply guiding them. So I let Judah speak. The next thing I did was share my condolences for his loss. And then the last thing I did was ask super straightforward questions. And I'm hoping that I did this loss and this thing that he shared with us justice. I'm really, it's a learning experience for myself as well, because while talking about difficult things that happen in our lives can be very uncomfortable, and sometimes we feel the need to turn away from it and avoid it. I think it is so important that we don't, and that's something that I'm very much trying to continue to practice. And I actually really like this little chat beforehand. I think it's I love to talk and I love to share my life. And with this podcast, the focus is very much on my guests and I want it to very much be on my guests. But this might be a nice little way for us to kind of connect. You can kind of get to know me a little bit more as well. So perhaps this will be something new that we do every week where I could just kind of come on, say hello, say how I'm going, and just give you a little bit more of a casual introduction to the podcast rather than just kind of reading off something that I've written beforehand or something like that. So yes, without further ado, please welcome the lovely Judah. And the very last thing that I am going to say is please subscribe, please like, please comment, please rate, please share with your friends, as it really supports me. And yeah, I just want this podcast to reach as many people as possible. So enjoy this podcast, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Comfy?
Yeah.
Lovely. Alrighty, so welcome back everyone to Season Professional. It has been a little while since I've recorded, and I'm so pleased that our very first guest after this little hiatus of mine is the lovely Judah. So welcome.
Thank you. I feel welcomed and honoured also that I get to kick off the hiatus.
Oh, well, we're very appreciative that you've carved some time in your day. It is raining outside, and we're also dealing with a darker backdrop. So apologies for, maybe the set looks a little bit different. We've also changed up one of our picture frames because, we're in Brighton and the old picture frame was severely moldy. So this morning we were going through a lot of mold issues, just really bringing us right back down to earth.
Love that.
I know. The amount of mold here is just something else.
Really?
Yes, it's actually horrifying.
Is it not? You not have to deal with that in Canada, or
not to this level of it's growing on my shoes.
Really?
Not to this level. And now my family's freaking out. They're like, "You're gonna contract a health condition," and I'm like, "Fabulous." Neuroses is just I'm gonna contract a health condition. But anyways, so with all that being said, all the caveats, we're gonna have a lovely conversation today, and I'm really excited. So the first thing we do on Season Professional is we always look at a childhood photo of yourself. So we popped it up there, but if you can grab it down for us, so you can really have a nice. Oh no! You're destroying the place.
Sorry,
No, it's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. I made this, so it's not an issue if we ruin it.
Did I ruin it?
No, you didn't ruin it. Don't worry. If it makes you feel better, we had another guest spill coffee on our couch, which is really bad.
I hate them.
You should hate them.
Hey, can I really wanted to do this. I really want to do this.
Yeah.
I am going to do this.
Yeah.
And there's not really an easy way of saying it. So, tragically, incredibly, both my parents that live at different places of the world, both passed within 3 weeks of each other. About 4 weeks ago.
Oh my Lord.
And my mum, who lived in California, and my dad, who lived in London. In fact, she passed and he had a heart attack 3 hours later. And the reason I'm sharing that isn't to, please, we don't need to spend any more time on that, apart from the fact that if my responses feel a little bit charged, not a reason to not go there, but I just wanted to share that now.
Thank you for telling me that. That's horrendous. I'm so sorry to go through that. That is... Were they still together? Or
No.
That's so...
I know.
What are the...
Uh-huh.
Had they found new partners?
Yes.
Jeez.
They were apart for 35 years, 40 years. Different parts of the world.
Have you thought about what that means?
I mean, look, there's part of me that's like, that's not fair on them. Because it was not Shakespearean or star-crossed lovers.
Yeah.
They were not that.
They weren't that. They weren't connected.
Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of doesn't feel fair because there are other people that probably should have that. They should have had that and didn't get that. And so it's a bit frustrating that they got it. But beyond that, no, I haven't really thought about like the deeper meaning of that. Yeah.
What were their names?
Bebe and Masood.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And what were they like?
The problem with a complex relationship, which I had with my mum, is that it makes grief complex.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't feel one thing. You have to feel lots of things. And that isn't so straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, actually, when you do feel one thing, which is like loss and sadness that I do for my dad, that ain't a picnic either.
No, it's
not. My father was productive, different generation. I think he was already not part of the generation he was in when he was born in that generation. He was super old school, and provision was important and working was important. And nothing else really mattered than to provide.
Mm-hmm.
And my mum was very colourful. Very strong-willed. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it just the three of you growing up?
I mean, only for a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they split when I was quite young.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was with... I mean, I got ferried in between parents.
Yeah.
Between my dad and my mum a lot.
Did they have similar values in how they raised you, do you think?
Wow. Don't know. It was different.
Yeah.
My dad's mum, so my grandma, was married at 9
Oh my gosh.
and left her home skipping, holding a teddy bear, on her way to get married to a husband who was 15. So when I say like a different generation, like almost a different world.
Yeah.
So my dad's understanding of parenthood was not like anything that we would understand as parenthood.
Uh-huh.
So to your point about values, probably he didn't want me to grow up like he grew up, but he'd probably not been modelled what were values even. Just so his parents, so my grandma, I think gave birth at 11 or 12, and then went on to have 9. So for them, it was about, as soon as they had children, it was the responsibility of children to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
They never worked,
Mm-hmm.
ever. They just created children, and then the children took care of them. So he just carried on providing,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that I didn't have to was the core value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Of course, when you're a kid growing up in 20th century, and then, predominantly 20th century, and you see everybody else enjoying a different life,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I don't have to provide doesn't really cut it as a kid or a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
Predominantly West London.
Yeah.
Predominantly. West. And then would get ferried off to Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
A bit.
Mm-hmm.
My mum lived in Israel for a lot. So Tehran, Tel Aviv. Two countries that don't particularly get on
No.
with
Not
each other.
particularly.
But there was a time that those countries were lovers and enjoyed each other's company a lot.
Is there a memory from your childhood that you have of your father of being particularly positive?
Yes.
Yeah.
He got me a bike one year.
Did he teach you how to ride?
No.
Did you teach yourself?
Yeah.
Were you any good?
Was I any good?
Or did you just fall over all the time?
I know, I learned, but then I think I was cycling to school and someone was like, "Mate, you cycle like a penguin, what are you doing?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's because my knees were sticking out. So I corrected that. Yeah, that was it.
What color was the bike?
Metallic blue.
Sounds like your dad had you in mind when he picked it out.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I mean, the
They're
option,
colourful.
the option was that or pink.
Oh, well, 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't come in black.
No. And what about your mum? Do you have a positive memory from your mum?
Yeah. Yeah. She took me to see Star Wars when it came out.
Nice.
So that was kind. She didn't have to. It wasn't part of her day.
Did you often feel like that? Like when your parents did things for you? It was almost like you didn't have to do that for me?
Didn't feel like you didn't have to, but it would be very rare that would happen. So it would be, it would just be an interesting thing, a new thing, a different thing.
How'd you feel when they happened?
I mean, it was really rare.
Yeah.
But I guess quite excited when something's out of the norm.
Yeah.
And also just like neither of them knew any different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not like they were choosing not to be kind or value-based or sincere or any of those things. Just didn't really know any different. And then they had their own things to sort out in their own lives to try and navigate, and complexities and all of those things. And so, yeah.
Do you remember when that photo was taken?
No idea. When you asked, I didn't have any.
Yeah.
And I couldn't ask my parents for it.
Yeah.
And so I had to go through some bits and pieces. But photographic memory of childhood, not really that good, actually. I'm pretty sure it was not in this country, but I don't know where.
Somewhere other than here.
Somewhere in the Middle East, possibly.
Yeah.
That's about as much as I know.
You had a hell of a haircut.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to be in the Beatles.
I know, the classic bowl cut. It's an unfortunate. No, it's a cute look. It's very cute. I had a very similar one, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
I know, but my hair was much thinner than yours, so it didn't look quite as good.
Thanks for framing it up.
Of course. You can take that home with you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give it to one of the children.
Now you'll have a picture of yourself in your home. You gotta have a picture from childhood, don't you think?
Really?
I think so.
I've never had one. Do you?
Oh my God, Judah, the amount. It's scary. I have so many pictures from childhood.
Oh my goodness.
Like the whole idea of having someone bring a picture of themselves as a child is to like elicit an emotion for people.
Mm.
And I remember, like, there's so many pictures. Like that picture of my brother and I is just like, I carry that picture comes with me everywhere. So it's been to university, it's been to all over the world. And I don't know why exactly, but we just seem so close there.
Yeah, it's great.
And I suppose at that time we were very close. And we're kind of coming back to that. But,
Yay.
you know, I don't know. There's just something about a picture that just like, you remember the moment and you remember the time in some cases, or you remember the feeling and it's like brought right back to that moment. So I just always like, my dream is to have like a full wall, like going up the staircase of all the family photos. Like, I just think that's so special.
I think you're 100% right, as in it allows us to make sense of a time when perhaps we couldn't make sense in that moment, but it allows us to reflect on a moment with the maturity of an adult.
Exactly.
Or the value of time past. And it's a touch point in our life. So photographs do present a different reflective kind of practice that maybe would have been difficult to summon without the use of the image, right?
Do you take pictures of your kids when they were young?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A million photos, right?
Yeah, every day.
Oh, yeah.
Not just like when they're...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there one that comes to mind when you think of those days?
So many.
Yeah.
The one that comes to... of ones I've taken of the three of them. There's one of Tallulah when she was tiny and crawling, and she's hitting the strings on a bass guitar.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's one of Caspian, who you know, Friday Morning Breakfast Club. And I think he was like putting on some sunglasses, and the sun's coming through, and he's got his head tilted.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. And the one of Zav he's wearing a check shirt. He's got a quizzical look on his face.
Yeah. Are they displayed somewhere in your house?
No.
No. Just in your brain and shoved in a closet somewhere?
In my brain, and they're there with the boys. They're their phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's
symbols.
Sweet. That's nice. Do you remember who your first friend was?
Wow. Who's my first friend?
Yeah.
A, what a great question.
Thank you.
B, shockingly appalled at not having an answer. We joked earlier when you were like, so we're going to wrap up at around 5:30, have you got anything to get to? And I was like, yeah, no, I have no friends. Obviously that's not true. I have plenty of friends. Not plenty, but probably the same amount as everyone does.
Quality.
But growing up, it was really difficult to fit in. And in fact, I didn't really fit in anywhere. If I went to different locations of the Middle East, I didn't fit in because I was too Western. And then at school, growing up in quite a harsh London, I was too terrorist or too not white. And it created a real difficulty for acceptance, which I think I probably still struggle with today. Not in those kind of terms, but in like probably more profound terms of being accepted. So I would work really, really, really hard to be accepted by different groups. And when I was, I don't really think I thought of friends. Just felt like acceptance. At a young age, like I'm talking about 7, 8, 9, 10. I didn't, because my parents didn't speak English at home. When I went to school as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, I couldn't speak English. And it was so weird that everyone was speaking a language that I knew nothing of. And so I had to learn very, very quickly. And then as I learned, it became apparent that I had an accent. And so it was so important for me to not have an accent. That I used to practice. And then it became really important to me to be able to like learn other people's accents. What might someone from East London sound like compared to someone from West London? What might someone from Fulham in West London sound like compared to someone from Shepherd's Bush in West London or South? So that when I'm in those groups, without it feeling too disingenuous, I could just slip into that kind of narrative to be accepted, right? A more straightforward answer to the question that you asked 800 seconds ago is probably a guy called Mark. When I was more like 15, 16.
How'd you become friends?
He was also an outsider. I was an outsider. Wasn't really invited to the core of things, which is really tough when you're a kid. But actually really helpful for my practice now, or certainly the last 20 years. And it quickly became apparent that he was fond of the Beatles. And I'd just heard of the Beatles. And so then friendship was born.
That's lovely. I wonder, because you said that you were always trying to be accepted by people, and you kind of changed who you were to be accepted by these different groups. Do you think that's why you weren't able to create like strong friendships in those young days, because you weren't really showing who you were?
Yeah, it's very profound. Also, probably because I wasn't really sure what I wanted of a friend. I just wanted to be liked, which, look, I don't want to get heavy. Everyone wants to be liked. No one wants to be disliked. So I'm not saying anything new at all. Everybody wants to be liked at school. Everyone wants to have friends. All of those things. It just felt more out of my reach.
Because you had all these other things.
Because all the other things.
Yeah.
And so it just felt a little bit like harder to get those things. But those things, I think, were challenging for everyone. And instead of not worrying about the things and thinking about what I wanted from a friend, it became the thing that I was fascinated with. And so, it was probably very difficult to work out what kind of friend I needed or wanted, or nurture the conditions to develop a friendship with someone.
Was the area that you grew up in like diverse?
It was diverse. It wasn't really. It's shifted. It wasn't about black or white.
Mm-hmm.
It was about British or not.
I see.
So if you were British, that was fine. And you could be white, you could be black, doesn't really matter. But if you're British, it's fine.
I see.
If you're not,
it's not fine.
It's not fine. And so that's where it really was. So there was diversity, but it wasn't, with that diversity came a layer of like ability for society to kind of integrate in meaningful ways and harmony.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Certainly not a school one. Yeah, it was homegrown here.
Mm-hmm.
You lot
over there. Yeah.
Kind of vibe.
What was school like for you?
Yeah, pretty horrible.
Yeah. Bullying?
Yeah, at middle school bullying. Yeah, pretty relentless bullying. Yeah, bullying consistently for about 3 years, from 8 till 11-ish, I think.
And was it based on the fact that you weren't British?
Yeah. And an easy target and that kind of stuff. And then in sort of high school, not really, just not being accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Was the thing, just like being on the fringes of everything,
mm-hmm.
on the outside of everything. Yeah.
Did anyone try and integrate you or help you? The teachers?
Oh no, bless them. Teachers.
Oblivious?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, I had a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Nah, integration. No, the only real space for that was football.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of needed to be accepted to be able to play. And so that became a challenge. You know, and the thing about being accepted is it's like Groundhog Day. As in, like, no matter what you'd done the day before, no matter how funny you were, no matter how you managed to make people feel at ease and accept you, and by 3 o'clock allow you in to like walk home with them and joke, 8:30 the next day everything's forgotten and you start from zero again, and you have to go through the whole process, and knowing on a daily basis that you were never going to be possibly even invited to be part of groups until after lunch, because it would take a couple of hours just to be accepted again, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it was that constant, like, knowing every day that it's going to be like a challenge, and some days you'd wake up and you'd feel like you didn't have it. And this was what school was really like. Forget academia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just wanting to fit in to like 20th century West London.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That felt like school.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. Like, the subjects and the lessons, they were all like the scenery that happened to like pass me by.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reality was like, how do I fit in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that I'm not a third-class citizen in this thing called society.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. What else did you change about yourself?
Oh gosh, I think it's like it would be very difficult to for me to reflect. I'd need a wall of photos to take me back to those moments.
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
I think I think we could safely say there would be non-verbal communication, so things like body language, gait, how you walk,
mm-hmm.
Responses, different elements of eye contact for different groups of people, like all of the stuff that we that we don't take into consideration when we communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Because this thing called language and words was never the only way that humans used to connect with each other, right? And yet it's now become so heavily used that it's like proper creaking, because it doesn't have the bandwidth to communicate what's in here. And in here, like, words just aren't enough, right? But we never were limited by words. In the past, we weren't. We had other ways. We had meaningful ways of touch, of movement, of communication, of expression, of creative expression, that were seen as part of dialogue, right? Not as solitary things that you do to, like, make sense of yourself or better yourself or any of that stuff. It was seen as a way of dialoguing. But then gradually we've just reduced it down. We're very proud of words, almost as proud of words as we are of creating the wheel. But like, we're proud of this thing of community, and now it's become everything. It's the only way we communicate using words. And so I think, again, apologies, another long way of answering the question, but I'm pretty certain that I would have explored a lot of observation to switch things up.
I feel like that is a rare thing for children to do, to observe their surroundings and to understand how people communicate to one another and really get into, like, the nitty gritty. Like, what you're saying, because I've done a lot in obviously working with kids, and they talk a lot about masking, specifically with people who have autism, and they study children and like their peers about how, and forgive me if I'm getting some of this wrong, but from what I understand is that masking is when you study people's emotions and you learn how to react in that way based on how other people are reacting. And it almost sounds like that's what you were doing. You were like studying your surroundings to learn how to become one of them, which is quite a lot of pressure for someone so young.
Yeah. But I also think there's something normal, because, like, we can't help but take on the behavior that we've been modeled, right? But if we don't like it, then we look for somewhere else to capture that behavior. Zab, my oldest, was telling me about how there are these starlings on a farm that have mimicked the sound of the machinery that goes on, and that's part of their bird song.
Oh, wow.
Except that the machinery wasn't there, is no longer there, hasn't been there for about 20 years. So there are multiple generations of these birds that have never heard the actual farm machinery noises, but it's now part of their bird song narrative and language because how that's been passed on, right?
Wow.
And I feel like there's an element of that about us emotionally. Spiritually, and embodied in, like, the very crude way that we have of communicating through words.
That's so true. And even just, there's just, it's like innate in you. If you react in a certain way, then so much can be picked up from just, like, energy and the vibes of a room or something. And so much can be communicated just through that.
So true.
It's, we had another guest on a few weeks ago, or back in August, and she went to an ashram in India, and she was describing how the energy in the air there was, like, thick, and she could hear this, like, buzzing in her ear at all times because there was just, like, this constant flow of energy that was happening. And I think, as someone who doesn't necessarily understand energy, I think we can all understand what a vibe is. And when you go into a room and you can feel what the vibe is and understand before anything's ever said, before you ever even look at the person in there, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's not something you can verbally teach. It's something you have to observe and experience for yourself. And then it becomes innate in others as well, I think.
Do you know, you just reminded me that like earlier this year, I met a group of what are now I would consider friends.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. And I didn't have to work hard for it.
Oh, amazing.
But a lot of them work in the understanding of energy, right? That people share.
Mm-hmm.
And in the spirit of transparency, hold my hands up. When they told me what they did, initially I was like, yeah, that sounds a bit crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like that's what you do? You like to see the energy? But then when they started talking more about it, of course it made sense. And it was like more obvious than anything that we might use to communicate. Is what are we actually emitting? Really, really, really interesting, like the areas of work that they do. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, because it's not a mainstream communicative method or understanding, it will naturally get thrown into weird and wacky bucket. Often, not always. Which then immediately feels like discounts it somehow. You know, it's not a serious thing that we need to look at because it's in that kind of like crazy thing.
Yeah, I almost feel like you have to be like woo-woo to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Which is so silly because that's not the case. But I think it comes into, if you want to feel accepted by that community, you feel like you have to be more like that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. What was your dream as a child? What did you want to be when you were a kid?
Liked.
Yeah.
That was it. My bar.
That was your bar.
Was low.
Yeah.
I want to be liked. Yeah. I think that was like the first to just be accepted, and for it not to have to be a thing or like a preemptive element of the onboarding of a friendship, or for it just to be natural and normal. I think that was like the first, up until sort of like teenage years. And then beyond that, I think it was just like fairly evident that I wanted to be part of doing stuff, making stuff to help to forge a way for other outsiders to find a way in. After, sort of 15, 16, that became quite apparent, although I wouldn't have had the words to say it like I've done to you. But that's what that kind of energy was, right?
Yeah.
Once I started to sort of then begin to realise the different tools required to be able to integrate in society, and not just integrate, but connect. And not just connect, but to inspire, to hold an audience, to be able to move, to catch imagination, to throw it somewhere. Soon as those things became like within my grasp, it was like, cool, I want to go back and create as many pathways for outsiders to come in. Just didn't know how to do it. Or articulate it, to be honest.
So what'd you do when school ended?
More school.
More school? What did you go into?
There was a little bit of a diversion because my parents wanted me to... They couldn't decide whether they wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer.
So they couldn't decide, yeah.
They couldn't decide.
Yeah.
So I studied A-level law and economics, and then physics as well. I say studied. I didn't turn up to like 99% of the lessons.
Oh my goodness.
I used that time to learn how to play instruments.
Did you?
I did.
What did you learn how to play?
Guitars, bass, drums, bit of keys.
Yeah. Were your parents under the impression that you were at these classes?
Oh, 1,000,000%.
And would you fake it?
100%.
So when you came home,
Yeah.
would they ask you how it went?
I mean, they weren't together.
Would your dad ask you how it went?
Yeah.
And what would you say?
Oh my goodness. I would time it right so that I would leave when he left for work. I'd leave with him.
Yeah.
And then I'd come back. Someone once said that if you learn every single Beatles song, you know every single chord there is on the guitar.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, okay. I had a video cassette of the Beatles. So I'd rush back home and I'd just be like pressing pause on the video. The video's not crisp like DVD.
Yeah.
And so when I pressed pause, it would still be quite shaky.
Yeah.
And I'd be like studying John's hands. What is that? Is that this? Okay. And then I'd grab a bag. Don't judge me, right?
I'm not judging you.
I'd grab a bag and I'd leave about 15 minutes before I knew he was coming home. And I'd walk around the block. I'm such a bad person. And when I could see the light on,
Yeah.
I would come back home.
Oh my goodness.
And he'd be like, oh, it's another long day. I'm like, yeah, I'm so tired.
It's been brutal.
It was like tough. And he was like, you know, how was it? And I was like, I just need to play some music. Yeah, just took mine seriously. And so then that would get me another 2 hours of music practicing.
When did he figure out that you were completely bullshitting your entire day?
It was like probably up until that point, it was it as bad as not being accepted? Yeah. It was a horrible day. I came home and...
Did he come home early?
Nah, but he got back, and when I got in, it was the quality of the questions he was asking was different. So it was like, what'd you do today?
Yeah.
I was like, just like a lot of law stuff and economics, numbers. Yeah, cool.
Physics, yeah.
Physics, physical phenomena and that kind of stuff. I won't bore you with the details.
Inertia.
No, it's kind of high level stuff.
Yeah.
It's big boy
You
stuff.
will understand,
You'll
sorry.
understand it. It's like, cool. What was the name of your teacher again?
Oh. You could have prepped a little.
And I was like, I can't remember. It's like, you don't know your teacher's name? Yeah. No, because like they weren't there and there was someone else that had to come in and cover it. No.
Yeah.
Then he dropped it. So I was like, cool. I almost lost it. You know what I mean? I was almost about to tell him everything, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Then we're having dinner. And he's like, isn't it your mock exams coming up? No. And I was like, mock, schmock, who knows, who cares? It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And he reached into his inside jacket, got this letter. Now, I'd already got in touch with the school and wrote a letter on his behalf.
Saying what?
Saying, we're going around the world. Don't bother writing to us. Thanks very much. How's your day?
Yeah.
Kind of vibe. Like as smart as I thought it could be.
So you did cover your bases somewhat.
Yeah, but they wrote to his work. And I didn't think they'd have his work address.
No, you don't think that.
Why would they have his work address?
Yeah.
Why? Obviously, there's lots of good reasons why they'd have the work address, right? But I just didn't think of that at the time. So in the letter, just the way that we used to communicate before, wrote something like, just to really regret to inform you that your son's attendance has been so shockingly bad. We've only seen them on the first week of this 2-year program.
Oh no.
And just wanting to make sure that you still are thinking that they're going to sit their exams, because we haven't seen them. Carnage.
Oh no.
And then he called my mum, who lived the other side of the town we were in. She came straight over. It was a horrible evening. It was a horrible evening. But the plus was, she was saying, they both said, okay, look, it's evident, because then I was like, I don't even want to do law, because I'm only doing it for you, and I don't even want to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And so then they were like, okay, so what do you want to do? I was like, I want to do music. And I was like, okay, cool, that's not going to happen. What else? And I was like, I used to love design at high school. I did that at GCSE. And technical drawing, I did that at GCSE, and art. And so my mum was like, all right, cool, I'll look into what you can do. And she did it probably within a week. She's like, okay, I've got you an interview for this architects that are taking on apprenticeships, and you can go and do a national diploma in design if you want. I've got you an interview at this place, of which I did. And then I fell in love with design because it gave me a different language, and it made sense to me. And then I got my national diploma. Then I applied to do a degree. I got into St Martin's. I did my degree at Central St Martin's. And that sort of opened up a pathway of using creativity as a way of applying it to social change.
Design to apply to social change.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't articulate it like that.
No, it was like a little more jumbled than that.
It's a lot more jumbled.
Yeah.
It was like, I want to make things to make the world better.
Oh, don't we all say that?
Of course we do.
Oh,
of course we do.
Oh, we all say, but you know what, you have.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to make that dream come true? Because I think we all say to ourselves, I want to be creative and
Just
I want to
make
swap
my knee over, is that?
Absolutely. I know. It's a little bit of an awkward
No, it's great.
situation.
It's great. I was just waiting because I didn't want my knee to lock, you know.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't want that in the interview because I would keel over like this, trying to get my knee into the right. And it would be like, stop, cut, let's go again. Hit the water. Let's get the volumes.
Oh, Lord. It's okay. I have my first aid training for children, so we can apply it to this scenario.
Yeah. How did I go about that? I just went straight to school and then went to St Martin's, and then I left there thinking, great, I studied product design. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna design things that are gonna help, like bathroom for accessibility and lots of noble stuff like that. But little did I know, one, that the world's a pretty brutal place. And when I left St Martin's, there wasn't a huge call for people to design things that helped society.
What year was this?
90s, mid-90s.
Yeah.
Kettles. We always need new kettles every year.
Do we?
We do. As a society, we can't get enough of them. So there was a lot of product design that was around kitchen appliances.
Okay.
Toasters also. It's important that we have new designs of toasters all the time. And I couldn't... There just wasn't what I wanted to do. There wasn't that space. There wasn't that opportunity. It was quite clear. It was either you need to go and set up a charity or join a charity or work for a charity, or you need to just join the real world and design stuff where the money is. No, I don't mean it like where the money is, but just where the market is. Maybe that's fairer, because that paints everyone as like mean. Very rarely do I think you ever meet mean people in life, truly. I think most of the people we meet in life we kind of get on with. A bit of a reality check. Then loads of years wandering, doing other things. Maybe I could do something in music. Maybe I forgot about making the world a better place. Maybe I just needed to make the world a nicer place for me. Until I got to a point in my life where I just didn't like who I was as a person. I travelled too far away from the aspirations of the kid that wanted to change things. Probably because they didn't like the version of life that they were being presented as a kid. That's why I wanted to change things, because I knew that it didn't have to be like that, because you could learn different accents, because you can change things. I travelled a long way away from that aspiration to a different aspiration. And so I just didn't like who I was, what I was about.
Where were you working at that time?
I was working for a guitar maker from the United States of America called Fender, and doing their artist relations by then globally, and working with some phenomenal musicians and artists that were all great. And so actually, you know, that music industry is great, because the access to getting into the music industry is, you know, there are no rules. Anyone can break into the music industry. The negative element of the music industry is that there are no rules. Anyone can break into the music industry. And so that kind of unregulated vibe of it was its biggest strength and weakness. And in those environments, if you are not sure of who you are as a person, they can be quite unforgiving. And I didn't know who I was as a person.
How long were you there for?
Too long.
Too long.
Yeah.
Who would you become? Like, what part of you didn't you like anymore?
All of it, apart from being a father.
Yeah.
So I had to leave. I got out and needed to reset somehow. I did. And then was like, man, I remember I had like these aspirations of like using creativity, using applied design. Maybe I could go back to that kind of thing. And whilst I took a few years to sort of like try and get my head around the situation, ultimately, after about, I don't know, 2-3 years, that's a decision I made. I made a decision that I was going to apply design for social change. And I had a 3-decade plan of how I was going to do it.
3 decades. You've got some patience. What was the plan?
The plan.
Are we in the 3 decades still?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was the fidelity of the plan, right?
Yeah.
10 years applying design to homelessness, creating positive change. 10 years in the criminal justice system. And then 10 years in, I'll figure out when I get there. And the first decade was homelessness. Right, I'm going to go in. What do? I don't really know. I should work for a charity. I'm going to work for a charity. Actually, I'm going to end up running the charity. In fact, maybe we're going to actually create our own homeless charity. And then we're going to create some initiatives. We're going to work with PrEP, and we're going to create a Rising Star program to be able to support those in difficult spaces. And we're going to house people and we're going to create jobs. And whilst those things did happen, it was also a space where there's still a lot of pride and I needed so much more humility. I think I got to the end of that decade, realising the biggest significance was my own insignificance in all of this and in life. And I don't mean that in a dramatic way, but I just mean it in the world was not waiting for me to rock up with applied design for social change. It's still not. And that I needed to get over whatever gargantuan skyscraper ego there was to realise that I need to meet people where they're at and not push my own agendas. And then the second thing that became apparent was that that agenda was driving me to have an outcome related that made me feel like it was worthwhile, as opposed to, should I be getting that person into a job right now? Maybe they actually need a bit more time. Was it right to house that person at the moment? That actually, we're just putting a roof on some of their problems. What they might need is X and Y. So there was a lot of social immaturity, I think. And then, so I knew a lot of the things that I didn't want to do for the next decade. And I knew I needed a lot of help, and I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And I knew that I wasn't enough as a human, as a designer, as a friend.
How does design and homelessness, how does that come together? And what was the interest? Why did you choose homelessness as your focus for the first decade?
I mean, the choices were fundamentally made out of my basic understanding of what are the outsiders that I can help. Right?
Yeah.
It was still the kid in me. It was like, who's on the fringes like I was?
Yeah.
Hey, these guys are on the fringes because they're there and yet they're invisible.
Yeah.
They're there, but like no one sees them. All right, cool. So the desire to work with different communities, although that's even a bankrupt word in of itself, but like different groups of people was fueled out of like identifying who else is outsiders. The design element of change, I didn't really know. My premise was, look, when you make something, a table, a chair, a film, there's craft involved in it. There's a process. There's methodology. There is care. There's probably kindness. A carpenter is going to like shape something with a real degree of care for the wood, for the materials. An understanding of the materials' tolerances. How to season it. Why should we not apply the same care, skill, craft, methodology, process, creativity to designing a national health service that we would do for designing a beautiful piece of furniture, or a kettle, or a film, or an interview? Why are those things less requiring of craft? Why do those things not have to come from a place of creativity measured with a practice? Why do we say someone needs to study to become a master craftsman if they want to make an arts and crafts armchair? But actually, there's no design process you need to go based apart from some kind of logic-based consultancy approach to like making the education curriculum. Right? That surely that isn't Surely we need more care and craft, because the materials for making those things aren't the materials for making a chair, wood or metal or plastic. The materials for those things are people and neighborhoods, society. Surely we need more craft to understand people, neighborhoods and society if we're going to make a justice system, an education program, a health service, right? Like, if that's our materials, we need to know what are the breaking points. What are the spaces to create, virtuous, positive outcomes when we're working with those materials. So that was the driving point. Was like, look, everything that I've learned about design is good, it's cool, I love it, it's brilliant, it's about care. From those that I was, idolized. Yeah. Yet everything I know about how we do society feels devoid of that stuff. It's like, no. If you want to create this governmental system of how we portion out support, service, care, it's a different pathway.
But why?
Yeah. But why? So homelessness was an exercise into, like, can I take design of that? And it was predominantly one that sort of failed, or it did what I expected it to do, but probably, definitely, there's 1,000,001 homeless charities that were doing it and are doing it better than the aspiration of what I want to do. So then I needed to reboot, and that's when I read a book about service design, where it was being delivered at the Royal College of Art, and the language around this practice was like, wow, that's everything I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so then I studied it whilst I was still finishing off homelessness, and then as I segued into the criminal justice system, and then literally it was like that, zero waste in terms of learning. I'd sit and listen to a lecture, I'd go and I'd apply it. And I got an opportunity to, for free, to give up my time and explore something with a group of people in a particular prison in the UK. And all I knew is that I just wanted to collaboratively make something together. I didn't have an idea of what that thing would be, but I knew that the education system isn't necessarily supporting people in jail to make better choices about their life when they leave jail. Our reoffending rate wobbles at around 60%. And what's provided in terms of education is suboptimal. So my premise, my hypothesis was, can I create something with the very people that this stuff is meant to be created for? Can I create something with them, or potentially even by them, that could be better than someone standing up in front of a classroom talking about maths? Can we do something better than that? Possibly. We put someone on the moon in the 60s. Can we do something better than how we deliver our English and our maths? Possibly more advanced than the methods that we used in the 19th century. And it happened, and it began to work, and the application of design in those circumstances started to foster meaningful conversations that created things that became new curriculums, not siloed, but like a lake of learning.
What was the first day like when you first went into that prison? Did you have a plan set out about how you were going to do this? Or did you, like, what was your, was this for your master's that you were doing this project?
I was doing it in the summer holidays in between.
Okay.
So in between year 1 and year 2.
Yeah.
When I should have been looking to get an internship at a service design consultancy or a big consultancy, I was not.
And what pulled you, like, were you working during this time?
Yeah, still homelessness.
Got a lot on your plate.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I feel like everyone has a lot.
Yeah.
But I like the lot that I
Yeah.
have to touch all the other things.
Yes.
To connect with all the other things. Ruskin, this 19th century art critic, writer, artist, would talk about how everybody has a practice that's kind of like a tree. And the stuff that we do are like the branches that kind of touch each other. Or not, depending on how we see our lives. Anyway, yeah, there was quite a bit on. But it was cool.
Yeah. Well, it was all relevant, I suppose.
It's all relevant.
To one another, yeah.
And then, as soon as I had the language, then it suddenly became really easy. It's like, oh, cool. This process, this methodology, this now connects with all the things I was doing as a kid. Right, now I can genuinely create some meaningful pathways back in to society for the outsider, for those on the fringes, for the second class, third class citizen.
So what was the first thing you designed with the inmates in the prison?
The first thing we designed, well, they designed,
Yeah.
was an icebreaker.
An icebreaker.
Yeah.
A little game.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Pretty
did it
much.
go? How did it?
Everyone create their own different thing. I mean, the point was is that, look, like, creativity is a luxury.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a privilege, right? And if we've grown up not having that privilege because we've not grown up with choice, then it becomes difficult to deploy that agency to that. And choice is something that's also quite a beautiful thing, to be able to choose what I eat for dinner, choose where I live, choose the clothes I wear, choose who I'd like as friends. If that hasn't been there, then me suddenly rocking up and saying, guys, let's create our own curriculum.
It's too much.
It's too much, right? So we need to have an introduction into creativity without it feeling like it's been creative. And we all know that icebreakers are lame. I've never seen one that's felt not awkward or uncomfortable. Okay, let's go around the room and everyone say, one thing that you like about it. So none of these awesome alphas were about to like buy into let's go around the room and what's the first name of the pet that you've had?
Your favorite ice cream
Favorite
flavor.
ice cream.
The last dream you had.
Right?
It's like,
Right.
Yeah, you can't do that in that area.
So, we all have established that it's not cool.
Yeah.
Make it better. And everyone went off and came out with these like really cool different things. I'm trying to remember. And then we did all of them.
Yeah.
Right? So we did 20 different icebreakers, which meant a couple of things. Number one, we got to know each other 20 times round. Cool. Number two, everybody got an experience of something coming to their mind, planning it, and then seeing it. As cool as someone having the idea for a podcast series and then doing it. That in itself is wicked. And then finally, they got to learn stuff about each other. They got to learn stuff about each other that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And that became a tiny little building block of like, cool, we now have something.
Did you know what it was that you had?
No. But what I knew
Yeah.
is that we now had engagement
Yes.
and legitimacy. Right? We've made something together.
Maybe trust, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think like I think the conditions for trust require more time. So I think like we then look at attributes like consistency, frequency, kind of transparency, and those things, like, we can build that, but we certainly created the way to build the conditions for trust, I think.
Or you designed the conditions.
Yeah, we designed the conditions, but I mean, it's a really good point in terms of trust, because there is a bit of a paradox if you want to collaborate with people, if you want to make things with others, to be creative with others, to collaborate, they somehow need to trust you. They need to have had that experience of doing that with you before. But in order to trust you, they needed to have collaborated with you before. And in order to have done that, they needed to have trusted you at some point. So there needs to be a creative way of breaking the paradox, and leveraging that kind of like energy of the first time that we're in a session. The first time allows you to get away with things that you might not be able to do in the 5th time or the 6th time or the 7th time, right? In anything. You go out on a first date, you've got more leeway to talk about things than you do in the 10th, because by then the cement starts to set a bit. Patterns, expectations, and this isn't a bad thing. It's good for things to set.
Yeah.
But like, it's also good to use that first 2 or 3 opportunities to, if we are going to have like a spectrum of creativity, let's try and go there to one area before we come back. Otherwise, we're in danger of creating a canvas that's quite small for us to play around in, or a sandbox that's quite small for us to play around in, right? And what we want to do is create something that we're never in dangers of hitting the edges, because it's just expansive in that sense. Yeah. So
you did your 20 icebreakers. Got to know everyone very well.
Did you want to go through the whole?
No, I do not. I can imagine them. I can see them in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
And they're great.
Yeah.
But what did you... So the goal when you went into this prison was to redefine their education.
The goal was, can I contribute as a designer to reducing reoffending?
Wonderful. So can I help reduce reoffending through design?
Yeah.
So you've done your icebreakers.
Yeah.
What was the next step?
Oh, but then it was, as soon as we did the icebreakers, then I knew we had something.
Yes.
I knew that we were going to create something. That was obvious. Whether it worked or not, who knows, who cares? But we were going to create something. That was definite. Then it was just a series of developing trust and making sure that we got as much of an understanding of people's experience of learning to begin to form what ultimately this thing could look like. But then it was just a lot easier after that point. It became doable. Then it was just about time and how long I had before maybe the prison were like, let's see something. But it was fine. It was cool. And so, music became something that's aspirational. And it's also reflective, but it's also expressive. Creativity allows that. It allows us to like express stuff that's in here and in here without having to use or to be clever with words. Inherently, it's got numeracy. You've got a count. It's got beats. It's got tempo. You need to understand time signatures, right? That's all numbers. And actually, if you want to flip onto the other side, there's royalties, there's percentages, there's cuts, also numbers. There's literacy, there's lyrics, there's meanings, there's contracts, there's communicating, there's bigger themes, there's albums, there's EPs, there's singles, there's marketing, there's storytelling. So this lake of learning was like a positive Trojan horse. You know, it looks, I guess, like a record label, but also it looks like an innovative education program. But also it looks like a way of being able to support people who leave one set of circumstances, jail, to engage with a different set of circumstances, society. Could be all three of those, right? An elegant design offering, more careful and crafted than English on a Wednesday or maths on a Thursday morning. This is something that it's been turned and sanded and layered and beautiful.
And InHouse Records was born?
Yeah, InHouse was born. Yeah, and then I've been so lucky that the things that I've explored post that have been valuable or impactful or important. Yeah, and that's almost the end of another decade.
Yeah. When you were doing InHouse, because I think you're underplaying how much this has impacted people. Like, you were able to facilitate inmates to explore their creativity and to find passion and to find meaning in their life again. And this InHouse, how many jails did it eventually go to? Because it had quite a wide reach in terms of England.
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly on that, my role in it, like my role in life, right, is insignificant. It was there to create the space for creativity, for choice, the agency, and then to support pulling these pieces together. The real work, the brave work, was done by SP, Beats, Nobody, Jonesy, Corrupt, Ace, C Roots. They did the real work, right? It went to a bunch of jails. I don't know. Suddenly grew to like about 5 or 6 in the UK. And then when lockdown happened, we created a magazine that then went to every jail in the UK. And then to a few correctional facilities in the US, on the East Coast, Connecticut. Yeah, some brilliant people there. Yeah, and so it grew in that way. And then gave the opportunity post-lockdown for some work to be explored in Connecticut as well. And that through dear friends at RISD, Justin at the Centre for Complexity, were able to like launch how we were going to do a version of that in the States that we're still exploring and playing around with.
It's funny, when you're describing these things that you did, I hope I make sense when I say this, but growing up, you said you were never accepted, and it was almost like you were standing on the outskirts.
Just doing a need change.
Do your need change. It was almost like you were standing on the outskirts. And then when I ask you about the InHouse, it's like you've designed it in a way that you can still stand on the outside and let other people shine. So have you found comfort in the outside, do you think?
Yeah, come on.
Because you could put yourself in the middle there. But you're like, no, I need to be able to walk away it's still to work.
Yeah, 100%. Because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
If it can't work when you design yourself out of it, then you haven't designed it properly. Mm-hmm. If it's dependent on you, there's something for this initiative, right? That let's be clear. I'm not saying that if someone sets up a business, then it's wrong if it only for it to rely on them. That's not what I'm saying at all. Brilliant. Lots of businesses need the founder to be involved for lots of good reasons. But, however, when talking about social change, it would be wrong for that change to be dependent on the person that founded it. That's not right. And so in that respect, the person that contributes to it needs to be able to design themselves out of it and for it to work without them, because the materials are not them. The materials are the society it's born in. And if it can't operate without them, then it never was born in that society. And they're part of the understanding of the craft of putting something together, right? And that's where we can use similes of furniture, things like that, to say, how are we going to put this education program together?
Yeah. How do you deal with failure?
Like everyone knows, right? You know.
Everyone knows?
Of course they do.
Yeah. Share it.
Look, well,
badly?
No, I mean, like, it's unavoidable.
Yeah. But how do you deal with it on the day-to-day?
But you work with it, you lean into it, you work around it.
Yeah.
So much of our lives are chaotic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we cannot control so much of it. 90%. 95. We have a semblance of order. And even that is just a thin veneer. Get up at this time, I'm going to go and this, I'm going to try and do this thing. If it rains, I won't be able to do that thing. I'm going to try and do this thing, I'm doing that, right? Like, so whether something works or not actually has got nothing to do with the 5% of order that I've got involved with, right? It's probably more to do with the 95% of chaos. And so if it works, if it doesn't work, it's okay. It's not okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are things that haven't worked, but in not working, there are elements of it that have been valuable, and that I take that as working, right?
Yeah.
So the design process can be very elaborate, and there can be a lot of people that tell you that it's very complex, and actually, you know, you need to you can't at all understand it because it's so intricate. That's not a design process that I particularly subscribe to. I think there are 3 elements of any design process. You order information, you specify your intent, and then you do it. How we order information, how we gather it, how we make sense of it, how we reorder it in order to be able to understand. From this mess, how we decide to say, this is what I want to do, and then we go ahead and make it. When we talk about failure, that's just understanding, ordering information. Because I like to make things as a way of understanding things, in many ways it doesn't matter if it doesn't hit the grand outcome. If it allows me and others to know more about themselves, or the landscape, or markets, to see what's possible, then it's successful.
And yeah, then it's successful. It's funny, we had someone similarly say a very similar thing. And, you know, when I first designed this podcast, I had an initial idea and like concept and stuff. But since actually doing the podcast, I've realized that my initial idea has like shifted. So I need to almost redesign my way of thinking and redesign what I want society to get out of it.
Wicked.
And it's funny because like I'm not trying to get my guests to say specific things, but so many of my guests are saying the same thing, whether it be, you know, life is not in your control and you just have to show up the best that you can, or so many of the people I've interviewed have had moments of like, who have I become like you did, and have had to pivot. And it's like, my initial idea of this podcast was to show people how to become these certain things, how to get to these certain careers. But I'm now realizing I want to know how people get to who they are and like who they actually are, like the core of who they are. And I think through that and through talking with people, you can learn so much about how you can become who you're supposed to be. So my final question, it's been a very quick 2 hours, is...
No, shut the front door. It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
My final question is, what piece of advice do you have for someone who wants to design something?
Know yourself. Design in of itself is about creating change in some way, even if it is a new kettle or a new car. But it's change, right? We can't be involved in change if we're not open to changing who we are. It just can't work. Like, the thing that we design knows that about us. If we're open to change, can change, then we've got a right to be involved in change. But if we're not, then whatever we do, it's going to be somehow disparate and fractured, and not from the DNA of openness to change, right? I don't know about other disciplines, but absolutely for design. Know thyself, Shakespeare. Right.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Judah, for coming on today. I think we probably could have talked for ages, and, you know, you're a funny one. You're a funny one. You're hard to control in these environments. I'm like, let's go this way, let's go this way. And then you just said things that were like, never would have thought you said. And I was like, so thank you.
Wait, no, but was there a roadmap? Because I didn't know that there was.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. That's 5:30, isn't it?
On the dot.
That's crazy fast. Well, horrible segue, but we will ask these two final questions.
You are the Sultan of Segway. I love how you did that.
Horrible. Anyways.
That's really moving. So, I need to ask you.
That's really moving, but no, I'm kidding. Okay. So, my videographer has two questions for you. The first one being, from your experience, what is one thing you would say to someone looking for purpose in their lives?
Looking to find purpose. Yeah. It feels glib to say the same answer. But I do wish I was brave enough and someone was bold enough to tell me to not focus on making other people happy and to focus on working out who I am.
Yeah.
Because I think when you are able to like who you are, then I think what you want to do becomes a little bit clearer. And the purpose can be misleading for vocation or career. That's not purpose. For the person that wrote that question, right, I know them to be, from little experience, a kind human being. That's purpose, right? What you take regardless of what you actually do in society. You can do that professionally, socially, personally. And I think there are things that drive us, like beyond the shackles of what we do for something as crude as work. That can't be our purpose, the work that we do. How we do that, how we do anything, is much more important. The how is the purpose. The thing that we do, if our friend that asked the question was to spend a career as a baker, there'd be a kind baker. And if they're a filmmaker, there'll be a kind one too. That's more important.
I agree. And I think that removes the pressure from it almost.
Right.
Like, it kind of comes back to like your values.
Right.
And what you value is what should drive you, and the work, the day-to-day work, can just align with that.
Can align with that.
Yeah.
So therefore it becomes like, what kind of person would I like to be?
Yeah.
I'd like to be a generous person. All right, cool. How can I be generous? I'm not earning anything right now. Can I be generous with my time? Right, cool. That's the kind of person I want to be, and I can be that throughout the rest of my life. I'm not dependent on this, going on my knees begging for this guy to give me a job. I'm not dependent for me to be generous.
Yeah.
I'm not dependent on a bunch of other factors that are way outside of my control to be kind, right? So I can make those choices, I can live by those choices, and I can be happy to say I am being the purposeful version of me that I want to be throughout the rest of my life, and no one's going to change that for me or make it any different for me, or circumstance won't change that.
Amazing. Thank you. I don't know if we have time for a second question. Yeah.
What was it, out of interest?
In your opinion, how do you know you are on the right path? And does the right path even exist? And I feel like the purpose thing kind of went with that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Good job. Oh my goodness, here we go. It's dark out now. Oh, goodness. Oh, you took the lampshade off the light.
Yeah, it needed just a bit of naked bulb.
Yeah.
I see, the naked bulb. How do you feel? Good?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I was meant to be
Credit?
drinking, but
Oh. Well, you can hydrate now.